Hello, everyone. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing a band from Oregon. Can you please introduce yourself?
I'm Zog, rhythm guitar, bass guitar, some vocals.
I am Lord Emit. I do backup vocals and guitars and bass.
I'm Vormir. I'm the vocalist.
Thank you.
And our drummer could not be here, so we apologize.
That's okay. It was still good. Great. And then I hope I say it correctly. So it's Mundi or Mundi.
Mundi, Lumina, and I know you had a question about that. I'll wait till you get to it.
Okay, yes.
It's a little different meaning than it might be first perceived.
Okay. So I'll start with my first question. Mundi Lumina marks your third full-length release. How does this album reflect the evolution of Shadowrealm, Sins of the Old Ways, and Ravens of the North?
Well, I think it's a pretty huge evolution. One of the biggest things was having a real drummer and not me programming the drums anymore. And then another huge portion was Amit stepping in and us literally doing all of the music 50-50. I write 50% of it, he does. We both, I'm primarily a rhythm guitarist, but I do solos. We share them pretty well. We both split the bass guitar duties. And so the songs I think are a lot more focused and structured than they ever were before. And lyrically, a lot more time and thought taken to try to have a little bit more mature lyrics than we've had in the past. Where at first we started much more raw black metal, and there was always kind of a sci-fi cosmic vibe that was in some of the songs, like on Of the Old Ways, Extraterrestrial Terror. We have a song on the new album that's kind of a sequel to that, but we don't have it. It doesn't say that on the track list, and that's remind me.
Cultivating Fear.
Cultivating Fear. Yeah, that's kind of Extraterrestrial Terror Part 2. But then the other biggest thing is recording and production. We went into a real studio with a really awesome guy that's totally pro and done an amazing work for us and a lot of other bands before us. And so now I think you can hear what's going on a lot better than in the previous recordings.
That's a big
Probably
difference.
more I can say, but that's it in a nutshell.
Of course. So then for my next question, the title Mundi Lumina suggests lights of the world. What conceptual or lyrical significance does this title hold in contrast to your traditionally dark thematic focus?
Okay, the irony is, if anything, if you read through the lyrics, they're probably darker than in the past. And because of the word light, it could kind of, I don't know, give a misconception that I don't know, maybe we're doing something super positive and bright and happy. No, that's to explain kind of the context of the word mundi. We're taking it rather than world, like earth we live in. It can also mean your whole realm and like your universe. And those lights, those are the stars that we ponder and we can never see close enough to touch and don't know what they really are. And we kind of write about how perhaps at some point, if you go far enough into the cosmos, you transcend dimensions into the, say, spiritual or paranormal realm. And there's all these lights, whatever they may be, maybe deities of sorts that we pass along the way until we kind of get to an edge, so to speak. That's probably the best I could explain.
Wow, I like that. That's very detailed. So your album contains both atmospheric instrumentals and aggressive black metal tracks. How do you approach balancing ambience with brutality in your songwriting?
Want to tackle a little bit of that one?
Yeah. Uh, we usually try to find like an even ground when it comes to riff making or just structuring a song in general. Like a lot of the time, we'll just bounce off of each other and say, "Oh, that'd be really sick," but if we added like more dissonance to it, or if we stacked more on top of it, and you know, just really push the envelope a bit, but still having like a prettiness to it a bit. Um, but a lot of the time, yeah, no, we're all about trying to like have an equal like meeting ground to just have a good balance.
And I think I would add to that maybe where he'll bring a lot more of the etherealness, kind of melodic, frosty aspects. I'll bring a lot more of the kind of grim and sometimes thrashy or death metal, palm muting, chunky aspects. And then kind of like how we said, we kind of meet in the middle with it, and it just all works for some reason.
Good, as long as you make it work, that's what matters. And then you create what you create, so that's awesome. So my next question, sorry.
Mhm.
Several tracks like Celestial Quest of Uncertainty and Ghost Town, Telluric Wormhole suggest a cosmic or sci-fi angle. How does this cosmic horror or metaphysics influence your music?
Well, I think I could speak for all of us. We all share a love for awesome sci-fi horror, like traditional stuff like Alien Saga
Mm-hmm.
and other things like that. And then as far as things like magic, the occult, I've had a decent bit of experience with metaphysics since I was about 16, and I wouldn't exactly call myself like a regular practicing witch, but I have understanding of things a pretty good bit. And kind of like I was mentioning earlier, we kind of just having conversations, just deep intellectual conversations, kind of pondered, all of these things are unknown, whether it's the paranormal or deep space. We haven't been there, and kind of if there's a connection with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of when we get to the album art question, that's what we were going for portraying with that.
Okay, that's very interesting, all of that. What's the story or symbolism behind the track Inhumane Creation? The title evokes something chillingly introspective or monstrous.
Yeah. So, Inhumane Creation is talking about how the creation of a homunculus comes along, or it's basically talking about how crones or ancient witches or modern, however, oafishly and misguidedly try to seek vengeance or almost practice a form of like voodoo, but not really. They're just trying to make a clone of someone that they hate that can um, be the complete opposite of what that person is to carry out um, heinous acts or be under their control and whatnot. Basically, the the title in itself, "Inhumane Creation," is about how us humans will inhumanely go out of our way to do vicious things just to achieve goals.
And
Interesting.
I don't know, are you familiar with what a homunculus is?
Yeah, it's like combining two creatures into one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, born within the cells and
Yeah,
crazy shit.
that's interesting. Yeah, I feel like that's true. Like they really do that, but obviously they're not gonna put it publicly,
Of course not.
Yeah. Okay, so for my next question, can you tell us more about the band's collaborative dynamic? And I hope I pronounced the names right. For instance, how do Amit, Zog, Vormir, and the Ruiner work together in composing, arranging, or conceptualizing songs?
Well, I think traditionally, like previous work, it's been mainly about Amit and myself writing the music while Vormir comes up with thematic ideas for lyrics and whatnot. But this recent album went a lot differently in that the Ruiner, our drummer, he wrote all the drum tracks first, originally thinking he was going to use them for a solo project that he was doing. And the project was death metal. And we had all listened to it, and a lot of our different friends in our metal circle where we live, like, that's black metal drums, straight black metal drums. And we got in some conversations like, that should be the drums for the new Shadowrealm album. It just sounds like Shadowrealm
Mm-hmm.
as close as it could for, like, what I did on previous albums electronically, but of course so much better. So that was our base. We had all the drums first, and we wrote to the drums. And actually, we had a lot of song skeletons right where we are now in our practice space, but a lot of writing actually happened in the studio. We got a lot of different spontaneous ideas, and I don't know if either of you want to elaborate.
Yeah, I shall a little bit. A lot of the time, like we never want just one person leading it. Like, yeah, one person could create something, but we're all going to ping off of it and have
Yeah.
ideas and constantly collaborate and kind of diminish stuff down into like this process of elimination of like, okay, that was cool, but what can we do to make that either A, better,
Mhm.
or B, how can we elevate this from what it already is?
And oftentimes, when they are collaborating on the songs and stuff, they're sending me or we're listening to the music back to back with the material that they're writing. And when I'm writing a story and I'm trying to fit like certain lyrics and the theme to go with the musicianship of what they're doing. And so most of the time it's by myself. But when we all collaborate, we look at the material I have, we look at the material that they have, we sort of kind of just piece together what might work, what doesn't, and we test run it, even as far as changing lyrical direction and all that. And it's been pretty good. We've all worked together, and it's been very democratic. And it seems like we've shared the same vision together.
I like that. You guys make it work though. So that's because I know a lot of
There,
we clash there.
there is a lot of chemistry between all
Yeah.
of us, and it works. And
Yeah, it's helpful that we've all been friends for a lot of years, and not like some bands who meet from remote, or
True.
ads or this and that.
we we definitely know each other's strengths and weaknesses, what we excel at, and like if there's something I can't do with the vocals, we'll have Emmett try it out because he has his range. And if you haven't noticed in Mundi Luminas, there's all three vocal ranges. All of us are on most of the tracks.
Yeah, I mean, he's on most of them, but we all do lead vocals on one. Well, him more than one, but
Yeah,
each of us have one song we do lead vocals on.
Yeah, it's definitely a balanced dynamic, and this has been prevalent with the last Shadowrealm albums where we have done vocals together and harmonized them and stuff like that.
That's cool. I like
Yeah, we
that.
try to kind of continue that. Always, there's never just one vocal track. We're always going to like, how can we make this part sound cooler with some gutturals backing up the screams? And sometimes we'll kind of take turns. Like the one song that he did the lead vocals on, I did the lower end gutturals, but ironically, the one that I do lead vocals on, Yin Yang, he does the opposite. He does the gutturals, and I think it works really well.
That's what makes you unique.
Mm-hmm.
How has being based in Klamath Falls, Oregon, shaped the atmosphere or identity of Shadowrealm?
I'm gonna have to make what would be a really long story short with that one. Back in between about 2019 and 2000, I was in a pretty dark, depressive period for my life. A lot of different things. I won't go into personal details, but finances were rough. Everything, was really bleak. And a lot of the way that I saw it was kind of connecting it to my environment where I lived, because it really convincingly at that point felt like a very negative place that had a very powerful dark energy about it. And I would hear a lot of stories to where, some of that may have some truth to it. A lot of the land here was sacred Native American burial grounds. I don't know if the house that I'm living in might be on that for that matter, but at some point, things just seemed so dark and so gloomy. I was like thinking out loud, and it's like, man, this place is the fucking shadow realm. And at some point beyond that, because I was already experimenting with some different one man projects with music, I was like, man, I need to do some black metal. I've been doing nothing but death metal, and I was feeling this more cold and militant and detached vibe. It just made sense at the time. And so first I messed with some stuff, terrible, like bedroom quality recordings, and thankfully eventually it turned into something much better. That's the long story in a nutshell.
Well, you had to start somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So you've been consistent in using occult and horror themes. What inspires your lyrical content most? Mythology, real-world experiences, or pure fantasy? Sorry, pure fantasy.
I'm gonna say science fiction, but fantasy also, and a combination of all the things you said, like the science fiction part, what could happen, what could not happen, and just like having, I think escapism, trying to find like get away from this place and from the real world and trying to find meaning in other things and like science fiction, like we all do that, and I would say just diving deep into stories and the in like in the impossible. And so we're definitely all fascinated in that.
I was gonna say I'd add, like, especially to the sci-fi stuff. Um, some of the songs that we've had people tell us, like, oh, that's, those lyrics are kind of unsettling, which was intentional on our behalf, was because of kind of touching subjects within sci-fi horror that are actually plausible, that you don't know that these things may be actually possible at some point in some place and another time or whatnot. And
one of the biggest thing is I think it's about telling stories that fascinate, that take you out of this world and into that world, that realm, and it definitely does its job. You go on a journey, and there's always, and with the album and the lyrics and everything, you're going on a journey, and which each song takes you there. And when you can, this album was constructed to where you could hear the lyrics and get more from it from a story perspective.
Sorry, was that it? Because I know there's like
Yeah, yeah.
people gonna talk, but that's very informative, and it's always it keeps people wondering like what's really going on out there, The unknown is always interesting. So for the album art by Moonroot, art is visually compelling. How involved were you in its design, and how do you feel it represents the sonic identity of Mundi Lumina? Sorry, Mundi Lumina.
well, forgive me, I can't remember how to pronounce his name from Moonroot. It begins with a V and has a lot of consonants.
Mhm.
But I worked with him very real time, so to speak, talking via messenger, going back and forth. He would have questions, I'd answer them, vice versa. And I really appreciated that he was very thoughtful and taking a lot of time to make sure what he was doing with a paintbrush on a canvas was what I was picturing in my head. And I couldn't be any more pleased. I feel like, especially with certain songs that are more cosmic, like the art looks like how the music sounds and feels. That's like always been important to me since like early 90s, when there was more record stores where I lived at the time, and me and my old drummer, we would go shopping for stuff. You could pretty safely tell by a cover kind of what something was going to be about and if it was going to be good or not, and it was usually pretty accurate. And I just hope we kind of accomplished the same thing with that. And the only other thing I would add is I'd followed his artwork for a long time, with a lot of different artists, and he did something for a good friend of mine for older USBM band. I don't know if you know Ceremonial Castings, predates Uwada.
No, I don't think
But,
I've heard the other band, but not that one.
but yeah, anyways, yeah, he's a really good piano player, and he did a piano album and used him for that. And when I saw that art, it just kind of stuck with me, and it popped in my brain all these years later, like, oh, that guy, that's what we want to use.
That's awesome. And it's good that he was able to bring what you had in mind to life.